In 1922, a 15-year-old boy named Soichiro Honda started his first day of work at a small auto repair shop in Tokyo, Japan. The owner, unsure if Soichiro was cut out for the business, assigned him to clean the workshop and look after his child instead. At the time, nobody paid much attention or cared about this young boy's role at the repair shop, as they had no idea who he would become in the future. Fast forward a few decades, and Soichiro Honda was now competing with some of the biggest car brands in the world, while also owning the largest motorcycle manufacturing company. This is the story of how a poor Japanese boy went from babysitting children to building a multi-billion-dollar brand with Honda Motors. The story begins in 1906 in a small village called Tenryu Shizuka, located at the foot of Mount Fuji, known for its poverty. Soichiro Honda was born to his parents, Geihei Honda, and his wife, who was an accomplished weaver. Soichiro's father was a local blacksmith who also fixed bicycles on the side. Growing up in difficult economic circumstances, Soichiro lost 5 of his siblings due to health issues. When Soichiro was 8 years old, he heard a strange rumble that caught his attention while going about his routine in the neighborhood. He followed the sound and came across a Ford Model T, a big piece of machinery on 4 wheels. Soichiro was captivated by what he had just witnessed, the first car he had ever seen. He could not understand how it could move under its own power, and without even thinking, he found himself chasing it down the road as hard as he could run. This experience left a lasting impression on him, forever changing his perspective on machines. Soichiro developed a fascination with engines and motors, and he learned how to repair bicycles and wet the blades of farm machinery. However, he hated going to school and instead spent most of his childhood assisting his father with his bicycle repair business. His lack of interest in school led to terrible grades, and he resorted to forging his family's stamp on his grade reports using rubber he found so that his father would not see his grades when he signed the papers. Eventually, he got caught, and his father punished him by making him kneel on his knees for an entire day without lunch. In 1922, Soichiro came across a magazine advertisement for a Tokyo-based automobile servicing company called Art Shokai. He thought that since the company was one of the most popular motor car services in the city, they might be in need of new workers. So he wrote a letter inquiring about a job, and fortunately, he received a positive reply. At the age of 15, Soichiro dropped out of school, left home, and headed for Tokyo to pursue his dreams. Upon arriving in Tokyo, Soichiro was taken aback by the fast-paced and vastly different city life compared to the village he came from. However, Yuzo Sakakibara, the owner of the shop, had a job waiting for him, babysitting Sakakibara's child. Disappointed by the lack of pay and mundane task of carrying a baby on his back, Soichiro stayed on due to his fear of returning home as a failure and facing his parents. As time passed, the demand for Sakakibara's automobile business grew, and Soichiro was pulled in to help. Starting with menial tasks, Soichiro gradually worked his way up to becoming a trusted mechanic at the company. His talent and dedication caught Sakakibara's attention, and he took Soichiro under his wing, teaching him not only mechanical repairs but also the business side of the company. Through his work at the company, Soichiro was introduced to the world of motorsports, which were gaining popularity around Europe, America, and Japan at the time. In 1923, Sakakibara and his workers, including Soichiro, began building racing cars. Their first model, the R Daimler, was made using a second-hand Daimler engine, and their second model, the Curtiss, was built using a second-hand engine from an American Curtiss biplane on the chassis of a Mitchell car. In 1924, the Curtiss competed in the 5th Japanese Motor Car Championship, with Sakakibara's brother as a driver and Soichiro as accompanying engineer. The car took a stunning first position, providing a special experience for the 17-year-old Soichiro. From that moment on, motorsports became his passion and dedication. In 1926, Soichiro was drafted for military service, but he failed the medical exams due to being colorblind. This allowed him to be excused from the army and continue working at Art Shokai. In 1928, Yuzo Sakakibara wanted to expand his business and open a branch of art shokai in Hamamatsu. He appointed Soichiro, his young apprentice who was 21 years old at the time, to manage the new branch. However, Soichiro's repair shop faced challenges in its first year as people were hesitant to entrust their cars to someone young and inexperienced. Despite this, Soichiro used his knowledge and skills to successfully grow his business over time. By the 1930s, Soichiro's shop had grown from a one-man operation to a staff of 30 people. The branch expanded rapidly in the following years, and with the increasing workload, Soichiro brought in his wife to help run the company. In addition to being a skilled mechanic, Soichiro was also an accomplished racing driver, which set him apart from his peers. He had built the Hamamatsu race car, which he used to set a new speed record of 120 kilometers per hour in Japan, a record that remained unbroken for 20 years. However, racing during that time was dangerous, and in June 1936, Soichiro was involved in a serious crash while racing the Hamamatsu in the suburbs of Tokyo. He suffered multiple injuries, including a fractured arm, dislocated shoulder, and facial damage. Despite spending months in the hospital for recovery, Soichiro returned to the racetrack only 4 months later. However, his family was unhappy with this decision to continue racing. And after arguments with his wife and father, Soichiro never raced again. By 1936, Soichiro grew weary of his repair work and wanted to venture into manufacturing car parts. He proposed turning the art shokai Hamamatsu branch into a separate company for this purpose. But the shareholders of the company disagreed. They believed that the current orders and workload from the repair shop were profitable enough and did not want to take a risk on a new venture. As a result, Soichiro decided to establish his own company, Tokai Seki Heavy Industry, to manufacture piston rings and appointed his close friend Shichiro Kato as the president of the company. Soichiro and Kato worked tirelessly in their new venture and together started the Art Piston Ring Research Center, and Soichiro in particular spent his days at the repair workshop and nights developing pistons at his Hamamatsu branch. For a long time, they struggled to make any breakthroughs, and Soichiro worked so much that he lost a lot of weight, making his face look emaciated due to the stress his body and mind were going through. This made him look like a completely different person, and after a series of failures, Soichiro decided to enroll as a part-time student at the Hamamatsu Industrial Institute to improve his knowledge of metallurgy. It was not until 1939 that Soichiro finally created a successful working piston. Confident in his design, he quit his job at Art Shokai and handed the branch off to some of his trainees, proceeding to work full-time at his new company. Honda began producing pistons day in and day out, but his creations were still flawed and nowhere near the quality they needed to be. Toyota contacted Soichiro to make pistons for the company, and out of the 50 submitted, only 3 passed Toyota standard. It was a big setback for Soichiro, but he did not give up. He spent the next few years traveling around Japan, visiting steel-making companies and universities to improve his knowledge of manufacturing piston rings. After gaining confidence in his knowledge and experience, Soichiro gave it another try, and the result was incredible. Not only did his new pistons pass quality control, but orders also began to come in from all over the country, to the extent that the company had to employ around 2,000 people just to catch up with the orders. Things were starting to look great for Soichiro and his company until Japan joined the Pacific War in 1941. And Soichiro's company was placed under the direct command and control of the Ministry of Munitions the following year. Toyota took over 45% of the company's equity, and Soichiro was downgraded from president to the position of senior managing director. Things went from bad to worse as many male employees began to resign as they were drafted for military service, and his company began to struggle. Soichiro did everything he could to keep his company afloat, but he was not ready for what was yet to come. In 1944, air raid sirens intensified in Japan, and it became very obvious that the country was headed towards defeat. Hamamatsu was in great danger, and Soichiro's company was struck by a direct bomb blast, destroying the factory. The company would go on to suffer a second misfortune in January 1945 when the Nankai earthquake shook the region and the Iwata plant collapsed, and Japan eventually surrendered in August 1945, but by then, Soichiro had nearly lost everything. After the war, Soichiro decided to sell what was left of his company to Toyota for a sum of 450,000 yen, and publicly told everyone that he was going to take some time off to figure out what the future would hold as Japan was left in ruins. A year after the war, Japan faced an economic crisis with shortages of food, clothing, and shelter, and resources were rationed. Soichiro struggled to even find enough gas to drive his car to the market to buy food for his family. One day, he stumbled upon a generator engine that had belonged to the Japanese Imperial Army and was used during the war to power a wireless radio. Intrigued, Soichiro got a brilliant idea. What if he could attach this engine to a bicycle? Although motorized bicycles were not a new invention and had been popular in Europe, Soichiro realized that Japan desperately needed affordable transportation. In 1946, he used his old warehouse to establish the Honda Technical Research Institute with the sole purpose of developing motorbikes. Along with a team of 12 men, he pursued his idea and successfully assembled a motorbike using spare parts and engines he found. These motorbikes, which were essentially bicycles with attached engines, quickly gained popularity and orders poured in from all over the country. As the supply of used engines ran out, Soichiro decided to design and develop his own engine. In 1947, he completed the Type A engine, and for the first time, the Honda name was proudly displayed on a machine. In 1948, Soichiro Honda established a Honda Motor Company with the initial aim of manufacturing motorcycles to provide affordable transportation for Japanese workers. However, he needed more funding to expand production. To solve this issue, he wrote an open letter to all 18,000 bicycle shop owners in Japan, proposing a solution to revive the country. Out of these, 3,000 responded positively and provided him with the necessary capital to start production. 1 year later, in 1949, the company produced its first complete motorcycle, the Model D. Although the Model D was a significant accomplishment for Honda, it was too large and heavy, resulting in low sales. Determined to improve, Soichiro stripped down the motorcycle and worked tirelessly for 3 years to create a smaller and lighter bike, which he named the Super Cub. The Super Cub became an instant success and won the Emperor's Prize. Additionally, Soichiro partnered with investor Takeo Fujisawa, who provided capital and expertise in marketing and finance, laying the foundation for the Honda Motor Company. In 1958, the Super Cub was introduced to the United States at a price of just $295, one-fourth of the cost of other American motorcycles, and quickly surpassed Triumph and Harley-Davidson in sales in their respective markets. Meanwhile, Soichiro also pursued his passion for racing and studied his competitors' motorcycles at races around the world. He instilled a competitive spirit in Honda, constantly striving to surpass benchmark performances. This dedication led to Honda's success on the racetrack, winning the manufacturer's team prize at the prestigious Isle of Man TT race in 1959, and again 2 years later, which put Honda on the global map. By the 1960s, Honda had become the world's largest motorcycle company, having produced a total of 10 million motorcycles by 1968 after the release of the Honda Dream in 1949. However, Soichiro's ambitions did not stop there. Since he was 8 years old, he had dreamt of entering the car manufacturing industry, and he continued to pursue this dream with unwavering determination. When Soichiro announced his plan to enter the automobile market, many people cautioned him that it was too risky for Honda and that the company should stick to making motorcycles. At the time, Nissan, Toyota, and a few other companies were already competing in the challenging world of the automobile market, and Japanese officials tried to convince Soichiro that the country did not need another car manufacturer. However, Soichiro did not heed their arguments. In 1963, Honda introduced its first automobile, the T360 mini truck, a small yet reliable pickup truck. Unfortunately, the mini truck did not gain much traction, and Honda soon followed it up with its first sports car, the S500. The S500 was a two-door roadster with a 4-speed transmission that could reach speeds of up to 80 miles per hour. Although it was a smaller car, it was smooth and easy to drive. However, only around 1,300 cars of this model were built, making it one of the rarest Honda cars ever produced. Just as Soichiro did with his motorcycles, Honda also ventured into the racing world with its cars. The Honda RA271 made its Formula One debut at the 1964 Belgian Grand Prix, and within a year, Honda achieved a first-place victory at the 1965 Mexican Grand Prix with its successor, the RA272. Despite its early success on the racetrack, Honda was still not able to beat its competitors in the car market. So the company took a break from racing and focused on building one of the most successful cars in the automobile market, the Honda Civic. Honda debuted the Civic in 1972, and in the following years, it became one of the most popular cars in the world. One of the reasons for its success, especially in European and American markets, was due to the oil crisis of the 1970s. During this period, fuel shortages were widespread, and in response, Honda devised a new method for fuel management called Compound Vortex Controlled Combustion, or CVCC, which allowed people to travel longer distances with their cars without burning too much fuel. Additionally, Honda addressed the issue of pollution caused by exhaust gases by adding a catalytic converter to its vehicles, which was not as common among other major automakers at the time. This led to Honda's rapid popularity in the automobile market. While Americans may have initially bought the Civic out of necessity, it was the Honda Accord that truly revolutionized the game. Initially, the Honda Accord was introduced as a compact hatchback, but later expanded to include sedans. This new model shared the same fuel-efficient features as the Civic, but offered a better moderate size and wider interior space for increased comfort. As a result, Honda Accord became one of the best-selling sedans in automotive history. By the early 1980s, Honda was the third largest car producer in Japan, and by the end of the decade, it was the third biggest car company globally. Soichiro Honda retired from the company in 1973 and passed away on August 5, 1991. Reflecting on his work, he acknowledged making mistakes, blunders, and serious omissions, but remained proud of the achievements. Despite encountering mistakes and failures along the way, they were not due to the same reasons. Honda has since expanded into multiple industries including jets, boat engines, power equipments, and robots, among others. And that's a wrap for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed learning about the incredible facts and stories we shared on our channel. If you're hungry for more amazing knowledge, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our latest videos. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and be amazed by the world around you.